Hello, Guild Wars 2 gamers. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, July 30th. We've got some more Guild Wars 2 news. They have done a blog post on the next 3 Elite Specialization reveals coming out in Visions of Eternity, which today we are focusing on the Thief, the Necromancer, and the Warrior. And let's just jump right into it. At the top of the blog post is a video. And first I'm going to watch this with very little commentary, and then we'll go back through it and I'll point things out. Okay.
Rich with history, Tyria is filled with artifacts and remnants of the past, all ripe for the picking. A collector of sorts, the Antiquary has a certain set of skills to give them the upper hand, and maybe make a profit. Send a script to pilfer an opponent. Stealing random artifacts from your enemy can be a valuable skill. Will you rock out to confuse your opponent?
What?
Will you leap up and bring the hammer down? Or let a dancer taunt your enemies? Whatever artifacts you manage to steal or borrow, a good antiquary will always find a good use for their plunder.
What?
Long practiced in Cantha,
I'm holding back.
Ritualists summon forth spirits from the mists, granting boons and sowing chaos on the battlefield. Shroud yourself with the ritual knowledge of the past.
No, it's another shroud.
To aid you in battle. Mark an enemy, seal their fate. The spirit of anguish will send volley after volley to deal increased damage to them.
Okay.
Daze your enemies with the spirit of Wanderlust as it slams the ground, knocking your enemies to the ground. And as your allies fight beside you, grant them boons and heal their wounds with the spirit of preservation. Summon and channel otherworldly entities. As a ritualist, you will gain a deeper understanding.
I wonder if that's Signet of Spirits. 3 big ones that are all shooting.
Their chants echo across the sands of Alona, reaching friend and foe alike. The Paragons are pillars of protection, channeling their adrenaline to bolster their allies and demoralize their enemies. Let your voice ring out as you support and bolster your allies around you. Protect them with a barrier to help them defend against oncoming attacks, absorbing damage meant for allies for a short time. Chant of freedom to break, stun, and give your allies a speed bonus. As a Paragon, you seek to protect your allies and motivate them to break through their limitations, to fight onward. Be the voice that stirs inspiration as it echoes across the desert sands.
Okay. Still love that logo. All right. The shout animation being the same every... Yeah. Every single thing they said about Paragon, it showed him just shouting and throwing a spear. Like, every single one of them. Okay. Let's go over here and see what they say about the details. Hello, Tyrians. Welcome back to another set of Elite Specialization reveals for Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity. If you missed last week's unveiling of the Troubadour, Gale Shot, and Luminary, be sure to check out last week's blog. Today, the focus shifts toward the Thief, Necromancer, and Warrior. Fans of the original Guild Wars may be familiar with 2 of the Elite Specializations we're talking about today, while the third is full of surprises. For the New Bloods, Ritualist and Paragon were in Guild Wars 1 and have been a long-requested feature added to Guild Wars 2. Tune into our Twitch channel this Friday, August 1st at 12 p.m. Pacific for a live preview of these Elite Specializations. You'll also be able to play all the Elite specs yourself during the beta event from August 20th at 9 a.m. Pacific until August 27th at 10 p.m. Pacific time. And we've got a picture of Indiana Jones here. The Antiquary, Improvisational Procurers. The balance of black market trade and above-board commerce in Lion's Arch has tipped toward legitimacy in recent years, and the Captain's Council has banded together with several smaller factions to claim a place in the Tyrian Alliance. But the discovery of Jan Theory artifacts has started a gold rush as explorers hustle to procure rare and valuable items that no living culture can lay claim to. The somewhat euphemistically I don't know that word, titled Antiquaries pride themselves on their scholarly appreciation of the artifacts they acquire. Many may even keep a few in their private collections, ready to impress colleagues at the tavern or blindside foes on the battlefield. And whether they're priory historians or pirates, Lion's Arch is still their favored nexus for trading and selling their wares and knowledge. Scrit happens. Antiquaries are the pinnacle of accomplished you know, as a PG streamer, I constantly fudge the words I say on stream, like, oh, muck you, or like, holy scrit, stuff like that. I clearly inspired this statement right here. Clearly. Antiquaries are the pinnacle of accomplished thieves, no longer stealing for material need and purely doing so for the fun of it. With the help of their loyal but not necessarily reliable Scrit assistants, Antiquaries can plunder precious artifacts from their opponents and turn their random spoils into improvised weapons. That's exactly what Steel does on Core Thief. Antiquaries can even break the rules of regular combat, allowing them to reverse a dire situation, or at the very least, take themselves and their opponents out in a blaze of glory. For the thrill-seeking player who delights in rolling the dice and adapting to any situation, no matter the outcome, look no further than the Antiquary. Press your luck. Antiquaries acquire new artifacts from the skill Pilfer, which replaces Steal, summoning a Scrit assistant from Underground to plunder from your target. Then you're still stealing! After a successful pilfer, instead of stolen skills, Antiquaries get the choice of using one of two randomly selected artifacts from across Tyria. These artifacts range from a Cryptus turret that fires automatically at any nearby enemies to a chalk organ that produces a shield, protecting you from incoming projectiles. Traits give you finer control over the artifacts you receive, from guaranteeing that you'll get one offensive and one defensive each time you pilfer, to re-rolling the artifacts for new ones at the cost of initiative. Double Edge. The Antiquary's new skill category consists of a set of abilities that can be used repeatedly, even while on cooldown. The catch, there is a chance for the skill to backfire when used while still cooling down, often with detrimental effects to the user. The chance of the skill backfiring decreases the closer it gets to completing its cooldown, so players who are more risk-averse may want to wait a little before attempting to use a double-edged skill again. Okay. Where do the cards come in? I guess that's supposed to represent the element of gambling. Okay, so let's go back to the video and take a look at this again.
The Antiquary has a certain set of skills to give them the upper hand, and maybe make a profit.
Is that a new emote? Him looking down at a book while standing in front of this? I wonder if that's a new emote.
And maybe make a profit.
It's /read book, it's in the game. Okay, I wasn't familiar with it.
Spend a Scrit to pilfer an opponent. Stealing random artifacts from your enemy can be a valuable
Looks like it does vulnerability
Will you
too.
rock out to confuse.
Okay, so so I don't know. I mean, I guess if he steals from a bar, does he take their guitar?
Use your opponent. Will you leap up and bring the hammer down? Or let a dancer taunt your enemies? Whatever artifact you manage to steal or borrow.
This looks so silly. All right, so when he pilfers, he might get a troubadour's guitar, which, okay, a heavy metal guitar, sure, why not? Maybe he does boons or something. He might get, this has got to be the chalk organ that makes the shield, and it looks like you don't have to hold it, the Scrit holds it for you. A giant hammer that slams down.
Guys, look at me, I'm so
Or
curvy.
a hologram of a Scrit doing some sort of dirty dance that I assume that just distracts the opponent in some way.
A good antiquary will always find a good use for their plunder. Long practice.
Okay, and then there at the end, there's 2 Scrit in this scene. So I don't know what's oh wait, actually there's maybe more in the background. So he's got a whole bunch of Scrit digging here.
For their plunder.
And then here, some kind of teleport pad. It's the Naruto sexy jutsu. Yeah, that's what the Scrit's doing, yes. The teleport pad reminds me of Snaf's teleporter gadget that was in the Edge of Destiny book. He had a little ring thing that he could throw on the ground and it would expand. And then you could jump through it and it was kind of like a portable waypoint. Not sure it's exactly
Long
the same.
practice.
I mean, it just looked like he shadow stepped there. Maybe it's a two-way portal? Thief already had a two-way portal. I mean, yeah, maybe. Maybe it is a two-way portal. I mean, they already had that. Okay. Really, really weird concept, I gotta say. It looks like it could be fun. This looks like they threw, like, you know, caring about lore and legitimacy out the window and then just said, let's get silly. And the devs were really drunk that night. At the same time, it's a game, and that does look like it could be fun. But, holy cow, this doesn't make much sense. Alright, so yeah, giant hammer. So instead of stealing, you hire someone else to steal for you, and then you take what they steal. Pilfer. And then, instead of like getting an axe from a warrior, you get a giant hammer, I guess. And you get a giant guitar from time to time. Very clean, immaculate looking guitar. And you already know how to play it. And the hollow dance. Yeah, I don't know what that was with the hollow dancer either. Let's see. Bad class fantasy. This looks like a random D&D character on a drunk playthrough. Yeah, this is really weird. Yeah, I throw down a hollow projector. Wait, where did you get a hollow projector? What does it do? It projects a stripping script. What? Everyone is horrified. Roll a will save. Okay, and then we've got the bubble. Alright, alright. Well, I pointed out what I've spotted in the video. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. The Antiquary. No, we already read that. Alright, Ritualist. Hey, it was the dagger. It was the dagger. Lots of people, when this icon came out, thought it might be Assassin, and I locked that in as being a Ritualist dagger, which there wasn't really, like, ritual daggers in Guild Wars 1 that I can recall. There was, like, the weapon enchants, spirit weapons and stuff like that, but this just looked like a Ritualist dagger. Alright. The Ritualist. Spiritual successors. Ritualism is one of Tyria's oldest professions. The practice originated in Cantha, where humans discovered spirits could be summoned from the mist and bound to a ritualist's will. In practice, this was traditionally a respectful partnership between... No, it wasn't! They were wrapped in chains! And their names were like anguish and pain and suffering. A respectful partnership between ritualists and ancestral spirits. But as the speaker's influence spread in recent years, so did their hastily adopted methods of forcibly binding spirits. It wasn't recent. They were getting tortured 250 years ago. Necromancy and ritualism have long been considered separate disciplines, but as open hostility between the speakers and the Jade Brotherhood cools, and Cantha becomes one of the Tyrian Alliance's strongest pillars, ritualists have formed ties with necromantic communities across central Tyria, Alona, and beyond. Ritualism will gain new practitioners, networks of political support, and shared resources will ensure that responsible traditions are favored over cruel shortcuts to power. Preserving a legacy. Okay, I guess that's why they're not wrapped in chains this time. Alright, I got no problem with that. Preserving a legacy. As you might expect, the Ritualist draws heavy inspiration from its Guild Wars counterpart. It better. We'll go into detail during the Friday livestream, but our design goal was to capture the key elements of the profession and translate them into Guild Wars 2. Which, I will grant you, probably is not easy, because Guild Wars 1, each class had hundreds of abilities. To achieve that, we started with spirits. Depending on the skill and trait selections, we expect Ritualists will be able to specialize into supportive builds or aggressive power-focused builds. Which I did say was my hope, that when they mentioned that Ritualist was coming out, I said I'm hoping to see support Ritualists. In Guild Wars 1, the Monk was probably the most popular of the supports, but Ritualist was also a very effective support. And then there was also just DPS Ritualist, which is also known for soloing big stuff in very tough areas with its army of, you know, gun spirits. Let's see. Spirits will be summoned while in Ritualist Shroud. I gotta say, I'm kind of sick of Shroud at this point. Like, everybody's getting a Shroud. But moving on. That's a personal note. That's not a bug or anything. And the Ritualist will also gain access to weapon spells as their utility type. Okay. I did mention enchanted weapons just a few minutes ago, I think. When in Guild Wars 1, Ritualists had a line of magic that was like spirit weapons, and they could channel some of their resource pool, their mana, and basically lock it out so that they couldn't use it, and it would buff the weapons of the party. Don't know if this is going to work the same way. We'll see if that is. For those who aren't familiar with weapon spells from Guild Wars 2, they're shareable beneficial effects with similarities to stances and venoms. Some are applied for a specific duration, and others are applied as stacks. So if it is stacks, that means like for your next 10 attacks, you do this extra effect when you attack. So the faster you attack, the faster that you use up those stacks of the buff. If it's duration, then that's more powerful for people that have very rapid attack speed because they won't use it up as quickly. While weapon spells were ally-targeted skills in Guild Wars, in Guild Wars 2 they behave a bit differently. The Ritualist will also receive the full effect of the skill. The Ritualist will always receive the full effect of the skill, while up to 4 nearby allies will receive the effect at a reduced amount. For example, one skill may last 5 seconds on the Ritualist, but 3 seconds on allies. Okay. Anguish, Wanderlust, and Preservation. The Ritualist Shroud behaves similarly to the Necromancer's. It's fueled by life force, and damage taken drains the life force pool. Once life force is fully drained, the player will exit the Shroud. Inside the Ritualist Shroud, Ritualists will have access to 3 skills that summon spirits: Anguish, Wanderlust, and Preservation. Each of these skills has an initial effect activated by the Ritualist, after which the spirit will appear. When a spirit is summoned, it performs a powerful attack before lingering in a more passive state. During that time, the spirit will periodically attack nearby enemies. These attacks can be focused on a specific enemy by targeting that enemy with the Shroud's basic attack. Otherwise, the spirits will simply attack an enemy that is within range. Spirits will usually disappear when exiting Shroud. However, there is a trait that allows them to stick around longer for a cost. The spirits, in my opinion, were the funnest part of Ritualist. If you can only keep them out while you're in the Shroud. I really don't like that requirement. If that's the case, I hope the Shroud uptime is very good. Like, Reaper, for example, you can be in Shroud as much or more than you are in your normal form if you focus on that, which you should. So I am hopeful that you can be in Shroud most of the time. But I'm definitely, again, personal opinion here, I'm definitely not a fan of the funnest part of the class being locked behind this thing. Okay, continuing to read. For example, when activating Anguish, the Ritualist performs an initial strike on the target, then inflicts Cripple and Vuln, and marks that target to take additional damage from your summoned creatures. Yes, that includes minions. When Anguish is summoned, it fires a barrage of projectiles at the target that deal additional damage against controlled enemies, and for each condition on that enemy. There's a lot more to cover about Ritualist Shroud, as well as some other trait interactions and the weapon spell utilities, so be sure to turn into the stream on Friday. Okay, so let's assume that in Shroud, 3 of the buttons, 1 button is Summon Anguish, 1 is Summon Wanderlust, and 1 is Summon Preservation. Preservation, probably one related to support somehow. Let's look at the video again for the writ section.
Summon forth spirits from the mists, granting boons and sowing chaos on the battlefield. Shroud yourself with the ritual knowledge.
I think that's the Bone Skinner staff, by the way. If you're someone who ever does strikes, this actually changes your spell effects, which is pretty rare for weapons that are not legendaries. It's a pretty cool item if you like, looking spooky.
The ritual knowledge of the past. Summon spirits to aid you in battle.
Alright, so first of all, giant orb thing above his head. I wonder if that just appears whenever you summon a guy?
Spirits to aid you in battle.
Okay, so mark an enemy. So it said it does cripple or something on an opener.
Mark an enemy. Seal their fate. The spirit of anguish will send volley after volley to deal increased damage to them. Daze your enemy.
Okay, so that line right there, to deal increased damage. If that is taken literally, if that means that every time it attacks, it does more damage than before, that means you're not going to want to enter Shroud at half power. You're going to want to enter it at full to make it last as long as possible, so that the spirit has the longest duration possible if it has a ramp up.
with the spirit of Wanderlust as it slams the ground, knocking your enemies to the ground. And as your allies fight beside you, grant them boons and heal their wounds with the spirit.
Okay, hang on a sec. I want to go back just a moment. I'm looking at the chart.
Wounds and heal
Okay, so Aegis.
their wounds with the spirit of preservation. Summon and channel otherworldly entities. As a ritualist, you will gain a deeper.
All right, so 2 thoughts here. I don't know if this is simply the 3 spirits, but they're more in a line and they're just doing basic attacks now that they've already done their, their big flashy thing. Or if this is Signet of Suffering. Signet of Spirits, I misspoke. Signet of Spirits was a very popular ritualist skill in Guild Wars 1. It was an elite skill, and when you would press it, it would just summon the whole gang all at once. So just seeing all 3 lined up like this makes me think of Signet of Spirits, or SOS. Don't know if it is, or if this is simply just all 3 lined up real nice and neat.
Understanding for the spirits of Tyria. Their chants.
Okay. Let's see. I'm definitely intrigued. Like I said, I very much enjoyed the Ritualist in Guild Wars 1. It was one of my most played classes. I really don't like the Shroud requirement, but it might not be that bad depending on the Shroud uptime. But if every time you leave Shroud, your spirits die and reset, because again, when in Guild Wars 1, when you summon the spirits, they were out until they got killed, or you moved really far away from them. They didn't have like a timed life. But the way that they did this, as soon as you leave the Shroud, they die, unless you take a trait that gives them a few extra seconds, it sounds like. So, not a fan of that, but I want to try it, and I want to see how it feels to play. Also, as a support enjoyer, I'm very curious how effective this will be as a support, and also DPS, because like there's 2 distinct builds here. Also, if it provides good boons while DPSing, you could potentially have a DPS boon, like an offensive support, a defensive support, and a pure DPS from this. So I would say there's minimum 2, possibly 3 PvE builds looking from this, and then in other game modes, no clue until we see it. All right. Let's see. Outmuck, I just finished the Monday stream of Riftbreaker. I must have watched the Old Secrets of Flute Suffering for. Glad you enjoy it, Gagman. Okay, so the last one in this batch, and it was the helmet. I originally guessed that the shield icon was a warrior. It ended up being the helmet. The Paragon. Unrelenting Protectors. Alona, land of the Golden Sun. A once opulent dynasty and triune of nations scarred by war, pestilence, and the machinations of divines and dragons over the centuries. In times of crisis, the nations of Alona could count on its most steadfast and inspiring of warriors, the Paragons, to serve as an unyielding phalanx against their foes within and without. In the past, these spear and shield-wielding fighters were a favored specialization among the storied Sun Spears. However, the practice faded into obscurity after the second coming of Palawa Joko, who saw the Sun Spears summarily crushed and twisted into the Mordant Crescent. The inheritors of the practice eventually re-emerged in the years following Joko's demise. Today, Paragons are still known for conjuring golden ethereal wings and shouting, bolstering chants and commands to empower their allies and demoralize their enemies. Hoping to expand this tradition beyond Alona, some Sunspear Paragons have begun offering their expertise to those willing to answer the call. Commanding respect. The Paragon is a staple pillar of Guild Wars 2 lore, and its elite specialization carries on the traditions of its original iterations. So, really quick pause here. In Guild Wars 1, there was an expansion called Nightfall. I never played that one yet. Maybe I will someday. But in Nightfall, they added the Dervish and the Paragon. The Paragon, from what I have understood from talking to just people in the community, because I didn't play it, would often have the type of armor that you see in these pictures. It would often have a throwing spear or a short spear in one hand and a shield in the other. And like this has, is a very big focus on shout skills and buffs for your team. While the spears that were introduced to Guild Wars 2 Jane their Wilds have already brought one of the Paragon's key aspects to warriors, this elite spec further delves into their role as commanders and defenders of Alona, granting them the ability to bolster and aid allies around them with chants and commands. Their presence is so powerful they can, in a moment of dire need, command their allies not to die. The We Will Never Yield elite skill prevents the Paragon and their allies from falling below 0 health for a time. So similar to Rebound, but it's a duration? It's going to be better than Rebound. So I would hope this is a shorter duration than Rebound, because otherwise it's just flat out better. Because if it's just like you can't die, that means it could block... If it's you can't die for a time, that means it could block multiple lethal hits in whatever the window of time is. And if that's the case, then it's better than Rebound, which blocks 1 lethal hit. So to balance that, it would need to be a shorter duration than Rebound, I would think. Okay. Motivational chanting. Paragons build up motivation, a new resource, whenever they use a burst skill. In addition to level 1 weapon bursts, Paragons gain access to chants, special burst skills that are available regardless of the weapon equipped. Chant skills come in 2 parts. The first part occurs immediately when the skill is used. The second part, the refrain, is a pulsing beneficial effect. Refrains drain motivation and deactivate when it's depleted. Excuse me, hang on just a second. Drink water. In addition, the effects of the refrain become stronger depending on the current motivation level, thus they are at their most effective when the Paragon stays on the front lines of battle, channeling adrenaline into bursts and chants to keep motivation high. Paragons also gain access to commands, which function similarly to shouts, affecting either enemies or allies around them. Furthermore, command skills come with an additional property called an echo. Echo is a secondary effect that triggers a short interval after a command is used, granting additional bonuses. However, echoes can also be triggered early by using a burst skill, allowing skilled Paragons to strategically time their echo effects to turn the tide of battle. Okay, and let's see the Paragon section again.
Echo across the sands of Alona.
Okay, so echo is more of a pun now that we know.
Reaching friend and foe alike, the Paragons are pillars of protection, channeling their adrenaline to bolster their allies and demoralize their enemies. Let your voice ring
All right, so not every command makes the wings appear.
out as you support and bolster your allies around you. Protect them with a barrier to help them defend against oncoming attacks, absorbing damage meant for allies.
Okay, so I guess one of the chants spawns barrier. Hold on, let's go back here. They all have the same freaking graphic.
Enemies. Let your voice ring out as you support and bolster your allies around you. Protect them with a barrier to help them defend against oncoming attacks, absorbing damage meant for allies for a short time. Chant of Freedom to break, stun, and give your allies a speed bonus.
Okay, so Chant of Freedom might be team-wide stun break, like Rangers Protect Me.
As a Paragon, you seek to protect your allies
I'm guessing the wings are the elite.
and motivate them to break through their limitations, to fight onward. Be the voice
Which
that
is the
stirs
don't die one.
inspiration as it echoes across the desert sands.
Several Paragons in squad. Ah, the whole fight. Yeah, just your ears are ringing at the end from them screaming at you the whole time. Full Paragon group, just a whole bunch of guys just grunting the whole time. Okay. All right. So I don't have a lot to add there. So it seems like there's the elite skill. Okay, I'm assuming the elite skill is the wings, and that's the one where you can't die for a time. And then I'm also thinking every other command looks exactly the same. Which, or we just saw a couple of them in this video. Unless the rune on the ground is different. I mean, I guess that's possible. If the rune on the ground could be different, but every one of them has like the same animation.
A short time.
I'll just mute her for a minute. Hang on, I'm looking. Camera's tilted too far up. Yeah, at the very least, the animation for every command is probably just going to be them screaming. As far as I'm really curious about the details of the elite skill, the don't die one. I'm very curious of the details because, like, for example, if the cooldown is too short, you could just have a team with multiple Paragons in it, have them do their elite in a rotation, and completely trivialize some encounters. But they are also adding group-wide distortion back into the game, which is going to have the same concern. For example, like Veil Guardian Greens. If you could just make the whole group unkillable or invulnerable every time that happens, don't have to heal through it. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. So, it'll be interesting to see it. It'll be interesting to see it for sure. I did have, one of my guesses was wrong on this, because in Nightfall, they were using Spear and Shield. And currently in Guild Wars 2, spears are two-handed, so you can't use them with Spear and Shield. So I guess that they might get like a gun saber button, like F4 or F5 would summon like a spear and shield into their hand that would just be just for them. But looks like they didn't go that route. So, we got the armor, they got spears, but the two-hand spears, and then they got commands. Okay. All right. And let's go back to the end of this. Let's see. Live stream this Friday. 6 elite specializations have now been revealed, and we'll be back next week to discuss the final 3. Tune into our Twitch channel this Friday, August 1st at 12 p.m. Pacific Time for more details on the Ritualist, Antiquary, and Paragon. For more information about Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity, head over to the official site. And yeah, so this Friday will be those 3. And then what's remaining? Revenants, we don't know anything about. Engineer, we don't know anything about. And the Evoker Elementalist will be next week. So if you're one of those 3, now you know which of the kids ArenaNet loves most. Sorry. So we'll get more information on them on Wednesday, and then a lot more information on them on Friday. Let's see. I'm wondering if final thoughts here. So Antiquary. I'm not a thief main, so this doesn't really affect me. But just looking at this, it definitely just seems like they threw caring about lore and making sense out the window. Like, this is like the clown character of the D&D campaign. Going on, Ritualist and Paragon are old-time favorites that have been long since requested, along with Dervish. Maybe Revenants will channel a famous dead Dervish. Maybe Revenant's getting Dervish. It's above a 1% chance. Maybe not a 2, though. But Ritualist, very curious to see how it's going to work, because it was one of my favorites in the first game. Though I'm not a big fan of the Shroud limiting mechanic. I'll try it before I, complain too much about that. And then Paragon. Paragon looks like it could be very powerful. Really, the only negative criticism I have here is just like, oh man, all the shouts look exactly this, or all the commands look exactly the same. But beyond that, it looks cool and it sounds cool by what they described. So yeah, I think that's all we got for right now. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I lied. There was one more thing. This is a very little tidbit that was pointed out to me as we were setting up the stream this morning. ArenaNet, specifically, who is this, Ruby, said after the August 19th update, this is on the forums, players will be able to summon their conjured doorway in the following lounges: Armistice Bastion, Mistlock Sanctuary, Noble's Folly, and Thousand Seas Pavilion. The conjured doorway in those lounges will only be visible to the doorway's owner and members of their party, so hang in there a little bit longer and your wish will be granted. Which I'm very happy about. As someone who visits my homestead daily just to get all that free money that's sitting on the ground, I often hang out in Mistlock as like my idle place. So if I want to go from Mistlock to my homestead, I have to load from Mistlock somewhere else to like Lion's Arch, and then from Lion's Arch to my homestead. So this is going to save me some loading screens each day. Happy about that. I'm happy they're making that change. Think that is everything we've got for this morning. So I turn it over to you. If you have any questions, problems, thoughts, concerns about the Thief, Necromancer, and Warrior Elite specs, maybe you saw something in the video that I missed, throw it in the comments section down below, and I will fight you there.